He was a desert hero cloaked in flowing white robes and also an imperial intelligence agent trapped in endless inner turmoil. Thomas Edward Lawrence wandered searching for a place to belong between the scorching heat of Arabian wastelands and the cold drizzling rains of London. As the sinking sun slips behind rolling sand dunes, let us follow the whisper of the wind and uncover his fractured life hidden beneath layers of fame. Tonight let this quiet story lead you deep into the lonely desert of his soul. What becomes of a man who wins a war yet loses peace within his own conscience? How can he settle the unrest buried deep in his heart? Thomas Edward Lawrence offered the most heartbreaking answer. Through a lifetime of endless solitude, he once led tribal forces in fierce resistance against colonial rule, yet handed over his allies to political bargaining. Lingering torn between glorious honor and the weight of betrayal on this peaceful night, listen closely to the story of Lawrence and feel the heavy pull of fate alongside the quiet yearning for true freedom. The world knows the legendary figure of Lawrence of Arabia, yet few have ever seen him sitting alone, lost in silent melancholy. Thomas Edward Lawrence stood as a tragic genius chasing pure ideals amid the narrow cracks of worldly power. He refused medals bestowed by the king, vanished into seclusion under an assumed name for the rest of his days, desperate to escape the false mask of heroism forced upon him as the hearth fire flickers softly. Let us follow the gentle narration and dive into the depths of a soul dyed crimson by the desert sunset. Why would a man hailed as a hero by the entire world choose to fade away like a fleeting shadow? In 1922, an ordinary unassuming private signed a false name at the enlistment office of the British Royal Air Force. No one could have guessed this quiet, reserved young man with downcast eyes and a somber gaze was none other than Thomas Edward Lawrence, the figure who struck fear into the heart of the Ottoman Empire. Tonight, accompanied by the soft flickering glow of the burning hearth, we step fully into the untold life of this remarkable soul. Through this tranquil tale meant only for quiet reflection, he began as a pale, quiet clerk confined within dull office rooms in Cairo, yet overnight rose to become an undisputed ruler of the vast barren desert. Draped in pure white robes, he rode across deadly valley stretches on the back of a camel, carving promises of freedom into the endless dunes. His deepest, most agonizing moments never came from narrowly escaping death. They struck when standing atop a carriage of hard-won victory, realizing he had never been honest with the Arab allies who trusted him completely. This sharp fracture of identity resembled the desert sunset, magnificent and breathtaking, yet laced with a bone-chilling coldness that seeped into every corner of his being. Walk with the falling night and discover the soul shattered by relentless inner conflict, hidden far behind the dazzling halo of heroism. The cracks of destiny often open quietly within ordinary academic pursuits. Long before fame arrives, before becoming the iconic Lawrence, he was merely a quiet archaeologist, utterly absorbed in studying ancient crusader castles. He dug for broken pottery fragments beneath the blazing Syrian sun, his skin bronzed by harsh sunlight, while his mind remained calmer and quieter than the pages of ancient scholarly books. Thomas Edward Lawrence belonged inherently to the vast East, drawn to its boundless silent wilderness that offered no compromise, no hesitation, no trace of triviality. When the First World War broke out, he was recalled to Cairo, confined within map rooms, calculating tedious geographical coordinates day after day. His superiors saw him as an unkempt, aloof eccentric who cared little for rules or formal manners, yet he understood far better than anyone else what dormant fires lay smoldering in those desert regions, marked simply as no man's land on official maps. Sent to join the camp of the Hashemite family, he brought no heavy artillery or military strategy manuals, only a pair of eyes sharp enough to see through the tides of changing times. It was there he first slipped into the traditional robes of the Bedouin people, a gesture felt almost like a sacred ritual of acceptance. In that pivotal moment, this quiet outcast of the British Empire began weaving an illusory dream across the lonely wilderness, a dream that would never truly belong to him. If you have ever witnessed the Negev desert before the break of dawn, you will understand the deep spiritual longing awakened by such boundless solitude. Determined to capture the strategic stronghold of Aqaba, Lawrence led tribal warriors across a deadly expanse known as the Hammer of Allah, a stretch of wasteland where survival hung by the thinnest thread. In such merciless terrain, water held greater value than gold, and loyal fellowship proved even more rare and precious than water. One tribesman fell behind amid swirling sandstorms, abandoned to certain death under the ancient unforgiving code of Bedouin tradition. Yet Lawrence turned back alone, braving scorching heat hot enough to burn the breath from his lungs to rescue the stranded warrior. In that instant he was no longer a British military advisor sent from afar, he became one of them, known to their people simply as Orange. This profound sense of belonging and recognition became the very source of his endless pain and inner torment. He wrote in his personal diary that he wore a perfectly crafted mask so flawless he slowly began to forget the true face hidden underneath. He spoke solemn promises of independence and freedom on behalf of the British Empire, every word sinking like iron nails into the hearts of his Arab brothers. All the while tucked inside his bag lay the infamous Sykes-Picot Agreement, the secret blueprint drafted by great powers to carve up and divide the Middle East beneath the glittering starry desert sky. He discussed hopeful futures with the Arab leader Faisal while his inner heart tasted the bitter metallic stain of quiet betrayal. This unbearable inner tension robbed him of peaceful sleep night after night beneath the quiet stillness of the desert. War spreads like a devastating plague, and worldly honor stands as its most misleading deceptive symptom. The braver and more heroic Thomas Edward Lawrence appeared on the battlefield. The heavier his spiritual turmoil and inner suffering grew, he mastered the art of planting explosives beneath speeding military trains and learned to carry out cold, calculated executions without hesitation. On the night he was captured and brutally tortured in Dara, something deep within his soul crumbled beyond repair. It was not merely physical torment but a complete loss of dignity and a haunting self-loathing that lingered endlessly. When he finally marched triumphantly into Damascus, crowds flooded toward him with blooming flowers and thunderous cheers, yet he felt an unbearable hollow thirst deep inside his spirit. He struggled desperately amid the chaotic task of city administration, striving to hold the fragile unity of Arab factions together, yet could only stand by helplessly as imperial political agreements took cruel effect. He became the reluctant middleman who had guided his allies to the negotiation table only to watch them be divided, exploited and betrayed. At the Paris Peace Conference he stood dressed in full military uniform covered in shining medals, yet felt like a clown performing hollow rituals at a solemn funeral. King George V prepared to bestow high royal honors upon him, but Lawrence turned away at the final moment, leaving the royal court and attending officials stunned and bewildered. This was not arrogant pride, it was the profound exhaustion of a soul desperate to cast off the dusty robes stained with desert sand and heavy lies forever. In the remaining years of his life, Lawrence spent every day killing the legendary name attached to him. He sought refuge within the Royal Air Force and tank regiments, living under assumed names such as Shaw and Ross, spending his days cleaning machinery and sweeping barrack floors. This humble anonymous life became a costly form of self-redemption, a quiet penance for the burdens he carried inside. Friends including Winston Churchill and George Bernard Shaw tried repeatedly to pull him back into the spotlight of public attention, yet he always shook his head in quiet refusal. He secluded himself in a simple, modest cottage tucked away in the quiet countryside of Dorset, surrounded by towering bookshelves and overlooked by the damp, quiet woodlands of England. He devoted countless hours rewriting his monumental literary work, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, striving to untangle the messy threads of fate and memory through the power of words. Late into the night he rode his powerful motorcycle across empty country roads, racing wildly beneath the moonlit darkness. The rushing speed allowed him to forget for a while the glow of desert sunsets and the flutter of Arab banners dancing in the wind. This deliberate spiritual exile stood as his most resolute silent protest against the unjust compromises of his era. He could not bring himself to die as a pure Arab wanderer nor live comfortably as a respected, dignified English gentleman. He became an eternal stranger, drifting forever between the ruins of haunting memories and the edge of cold reality, quietly awaiting his final destined end. In 1935 a sudden motorcycle accident brought a final close to this torn, turbulent life. After his passing, people discovered piles of unsent letters and several faded, well-worn Bedouin robes inside his simple, lonely cottage. The life of Thomas Edward Lawrence answered the quiet question posed in the beginning. Fame remained the lightest burden he bore, while his own conscience served as his heaviest unbreakable chain. He left behind no perfect, settled legacy, only an eternal paradox of identity. Caught between two worlds, he was both conqueror and captive, hero and betrayer. The desert sands of the Middle East still shift and ripple beneath the wind, while his name has sunk gently into the depths of history, softened by the passage of time. Our quiet tale comes to an end tonight. May you never be forced to carry such heavy burdens of fate on this calm, peaceful night. Let go of tangled struggles over right and wrong, gain and loss. Embrace all the light, shadow and dimness of this day. Just as the desert accepts the fading glow of the setting sun, may you find in your warm dreams the true, lasting peace. Lawrence spent his entire life chasing, yet never managed to grasp. Good night and sweet, peaceful dreams.